Hey everyone, and welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. I'm sure many of you are interested in learning more about PDD Holdings.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about it, especially with their performance lately and what it might mean if you're thinking about investing.
So PDD, the ticker symbol,
Right.
for good reason.
Absolutely.
This e-commerce giant, it's making some serious waves, especially with their marketplace unit, Temu. But first, can you believe their Q3 2023 earnings report? Revenue practically doubled year over year.
It's pretty amazing.
93.89% increase to a net profit of $15.54 billion, a 46.73% jump.
Yeah, it's not just growth at this point. It's really grabbing market share.
Yeah.
Really fast.
Lightning speed.
Yeah, but that's only part of the story, right?
Yeah.
Because the stock price actually dropped 33.4% in 2024.
Yeah. So what's going on? It seems like investors are hitting the brakes while everyone else is cheering PDD on.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to unpack today.
All right, so let's get into it.
All right.
This is where the technical analysis gets interesting. It's kind of like a tug of war between short-term strength and long-term weakness.
Right.
So on one hand, the stock is currently sitting above its 5-day, 20-day, and even 50-day moving averages.
Yeah.
So that usually means it's got upward momentum, at least in the short to medium term.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's still trading below its 200-day moving average.
Uh-huh.
And that is a classic sign of potential long-term bearish sentiment.
So what that means is, imagine you're driving down the road and you've got a green light for the next block or two, but then further down the road, you see a construction sign.
Oh, okay.
So there's potential there, but you have to be a little cautious.
So we need to look beyond the initial excitement.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's something else that's interesting here, too.
Right.
A high trading volume on January 17th, 2025.
Oh, wow.
Over 11 million shares traded.
Whoa.
That's exceeding the average volume by quite a bit. So that tells us that investor interest is there, but the question is why?
Okay, so we've got a bit of a mystery. Strong performance, hesitant stock price, mixed technical signals,
Yeah.
and a sudden surge in trading volume. So let's see if recent news can shed some light on the situation. First up, Temu, their marketplace unit. It continues to gain traction despite some scrutiny from UK officials regarding labor practices.
Right. So Temu's success is good news for PDD. But those concerns about labor practices are definitely something to watch. Any negative findings could really impact PDD's reputation and their stock price.
Yeah, that's a good point. Kind of like building a house on a shaky foundation.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter how pretty it is.
Right.
It could all come tumbling down. Then there's PDD's recent move to reduce fees for merchants on the platform.
Yeah.
Like a substantial amount. I think it was something like $1.36 billion.
That's a lot.
Which just seems like a really strategic move to strengthen their platform and attract more sellers.
Well, yeah, it makes sense, especially in such a competitive market. By reducing those fees, they incentivize merchants to come to their platform, which means more products, lower prices for consumers.
It's a win-win.
Exactly.
And of course, we can't forget about that incredible Q3 earnings report. It seems like some analysts are thinking that PDD might be undervalued.
Especially based on Investing Pro's fair value analysis.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, some analysts believe that dip in 2024, that was an overreaction, and the current price doesn't really reflect the true potential.
Okay, so we see the positives, but we also have to think about the headwinds.
Of course.
That they're facing as well. General market volatility, fierce competition in the e-commerce sector.
Absolutely. And they're pushing to expand into international markets, which always comes with challenges. And as a Chinese company, they're facing a really unique regulatory environment.
Right.
Both domestically and abroad.
Yeah, so many factors that are kind of unpredictable.
It's like navigating a ship through uncharted waters.
So with all this information, the big question is PD a buy?
Right.
What does a hold recommendation really mean for the average investor?
Well, a hold recommendation basically says, pause, take a breath, and wait for more information.
Okay.
So there's some uncertainty about the long-term prospects for PDD.
But I've also read that some analysts are way more bullish. They see PDD as undervalued with potential for significant growth in 2025.
Right.
They think that the concerns are already priced into the stock, making it a good opportunity for long-term investors.
Right, and that's where things get interesting. It really highlights the importance of considering all those different viewpoints and doing your own research.
Okay, so how should someone approach this conflicting information? What are some key factors to consider when deciding about PDD?
That's a great question, and it leads us to some really crucial points to consider.
And we will get into all that right after a quick break. Stay tuned.
First, you got to think about your own risk tolerance. How comfortable are you with uncertainty and those potential market fluctuations?
Yeah, it's like choosing between a roller coaster and a nice leisurely train ride.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some people like the thrills and others
Yeah.
want something a bit more stable.
Yeah. You got to know yourself.
The second thing to consider is your investment horizon. Are you in it for short-term gains, or are you thinking long-term? Riding out the bumps along the way.
Okay.
If you really believe in PDD's long-term potential, those short-term ups and downs might not bother you so much.
It's like planting a seed, right?
Exactly.
You got to give it time to grow.
You got it.
So it's not just about, is PDD a good company? It's, is PDD a good fit?
Exactly.
For me and my portfolio.
And your investment style.
Yeah.
And then you got to understand their business model and the e-commerce landscape as a whole. What are their competitive advantages? How are they dealing with all those regulations?
Yeah, so many questions.
It's like you're a detective, gathering all the clues.
Yeah, got to solve the case.
Yeah, is this a good investment or not? And then finally, consider those external factors that we talked about, the market volatility, the competition, the regulatory environment.
Yeah.
All of those things could impact PDD's performance.
So we got to keep an eye on the weather forecast.
Exactly.
Before we set sail.
Before you set sail on your investment journey.
Okay. So much to consider.
It is.
So we've covered their earnings, the technical analysis, the mixed signals and the contrasting viewpoints.
Right.
And some key factors for investors to think about. But let's look at what a potential breakout for PDD could look like. What would tell us that PDD is really taking off?
One of the biggest signs would be a sustained upward trend in the stock price, breaking through those resistance levels we were talking about. So PDD needs to climb above that 200-day moving average.
Okay, so not just a quick jump.
Yeah.
We're looking for a sustained climb that shows real strength.
Right. And to support that price movement, we want to see strong financial performance quarter after quarter. Those revenue and profit figures from Q3, those need to keep coming.
Yeah, like building a skyscraper, you need a solid foundation.
Exactly. Each floor needs to be strong.
Okay. So consistent performance is key.
Absolutely. And any progress with those headwinds we talked about earlier, the regulatory landscape, managing the competition, easing those concerns about Temu's labor practices.
Okay.
Those would be good signs for investors.
Yeah, like clearing the hurdles on a racetrack so PD can just run.
Exactly.
And let's not forget about international expansion. If they can successfully get into new markets and show sustainable growth outside of China.
Right, that would be huge. Imagine, expanding their territory and reaching all these new customers.
It's not just about being big in China. It's about becoming a global force.
Exactly, a global e-commerce force. And, investor sentiment plays a huge role, too. Right now, it's kind of a mix of optimism and caution. For a true breakout, we need to see that sentiment become more positive.
Yeah, like a wave of enthusiasm.
Exactly, carrying PDD to new heights. When all these things come together, that's when we could see a true breakout.
Okay, so that's the picture of success. But let's flip the script.
Okay.
What could potentially hold them back?
Well, we've got to be realistic about those challenges they're facing. Competition in e-commerce is tough.
Yeah.
They're up against some really big players.
Yeah, so they can't just relax.
Oh, no.
They got to stay ahead.
They have to keep innovating to stand out from the crowd. And then there's the regulatory environment, especially as a Chinese company operating globally. Unexpected hurdles could really mess things up.
Yeah, it's like trying to navigate a maze.
Exactly.
With walls that keep moving.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And, we can't forget about potential economic slowdowns or unexpected events that impact consumer spending.
Yeah, things you can't predict.
Right, like a sudden storm that can hit even the strongest ship.
So those are things outside of their control, but still important.
Very important. Another potential challenge is execution risk. They've got ambitious plans. But can they actually execute them? International expansion is hard. There are different cultures, regulations, consumer preferences.
It's not just about having a good idea. It's about making it happen.
Exactly. And then investor perception. Some investors are still a little hesitant.
Right.
Even though PDD's done well, they might be worried about the growth being sustainable.
Yeah.
Or the risks that come with investing in a Chinese company.
So PD needs to deliver, but also communicate their story really well.
Exactly. They need to build trust and confidence with investors
to
attract the capital they need to grow.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential for a breakout, but also the challenges they face.
Right.
It sounds like they're on a bit of a tightrope.
I think that's a perfect way to describe it.
Balancing that growth with the risk.
Exactly, and that's what makes PDD so interesting. They've got huge potential, but also some big obstacles. Whether they break out in 2025 really depends on how they navigate these challenges and seize the opportunities.
It sounds like they're in a high-stakes game, and we'll be watching closely to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
But there's something else I find fascinating about PDD beyond the stock price and the financials.
Oh, really? What's that?
It's their approach to e-commerce.
Yeah.
They're not just connecting buyers and sellers.
Right.
It's like they're creating an entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
A community and a really unique shopping experience.
You're right. It's very innovative. They've got those social elements, the gamification, the focus on value makes it really engaging for people.
Yeah.
Almost addictive.
And they're constantly testing new things, pushing the boundaries of what you can even do in e-commerce.
Yeah.
It's like they're throwing a giant party.
Right.
Everyone's invited.
I think it's that spirit of innovation and their understanding of consumer behavior that makes PDD a company to watch. Even if they don't have this massive breakout in 2025, they're still going to be shaking things up.
Yeah.
And really shaping the future of how we shop online.
It reminds us that investing is more than just the numbers.
Absolutely.
It's about the people and their vision for the future.
Sometimes those less tangible factors, the innovation, the passion, that can be the strongest indicators of long-term success.
So, yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the short-term stuff.
Right.
But really, it's about betting on the future. And PDD seems to have a bright one.
Well said. But of course, the future is never guaranteed. There's always risk. That's why doing your research, having a strategy, really thinking about how much risk you can handle. That's so important.
So we've looked at PDD's past performance, their current challenges, their potential. But there's one more layer we need to think about.
What's that?
The bigger picture. The macroeconomic and geopolitical context. They're a Chinese company, so that comes with its own set of factors to think about.
Absolutely. The world is always changing. And those shifts can have a big impact on companies like PDD.
So let's zoom out a bit and look at those broader trends.
Okay.
That might affect PDD's future. What are we watching?
Well, first, there's the global economic outlook. You know, we've seen signs of slower growth in major economies.
Yeah.
And inflation is a concern.
Yeah.
These things affect how much people spend.
Right.
Which is crucial for an e-commerce company.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then there's the geopolitical situation, especially between the U.S. and China.
Right.
Those tensions create a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And can lead to trade issues and regulatory hurdles.
So PDD isn't immune to those bigger global forces?
Not at all. Their success is tied to this complicated relationship between these two superpowers.
And of course, the tech landscape is constantly evolving.
Absolutely.
E-commerce is such a dynamic industry.
Right.
PDD has to stay ahead.
When it comes to tech data and AI.
Yeah, it's like a constant race to innovate.
And you can't forget about environmental and social factors. Those are becoming more and more influential for both consumers and investors.
Sustainability, ethical sourcing,
right,
fair labor practices.
Absolutely. Those are more important than ever.
Yeah, consumers are being more mindful of their impact.
And investors are looking closely at those ESG factors.
Yeah, environmental, social governance.
Exactly.
So it's not just about profits anymore.
Right.
It's about being a good corporate citizen.
And making the world better.
So as we look at all these trends, there are both risks and opportunities.
For sure.
For companies like PDD.
The global picture is unpredictable.
Yeah.
But there are also new markets, new tech, new partnerships to be made.
It's exciting and a little scary.
It is. That's what makes PDD so interesting.
Yeah.
They're right at the center of all of this. E-commerce tech globalization.
They're going to have to face some tough challenges, but they also have some incredible opportunities.
It's a story we'll keep following.
Definitely. We'll be analyzing the data, breaking down the trends,
absolutely,
sharing our insights.
So let's wrap up this episode of Investing Talk podcast, focused on PDD Holdings. What are the key things you want listeners to remember?
First, PDD has huge growth potential. They've got strong financials.
Yeah.
And they're innovating in a way that's really changing the industry.
But those risks and challenges are real.
Yeah.
Competition is tough. The regulatory landscape is tricky.
Right.
And going global is no easy feat.
And then you've got those bigger global trends.
Exactly.
Like slower economic growth, inflation, and those tensions between the U.S. and China.
It's a lot to consider, but that's what makes investing so interesting.
Yeah. We have to do your homework.
Analyze the data.
Weigh the pros and cons.
And remember, investing is not just about crunching numbers.
Right.
It's about understanding the businesses, their leadership, their vision.
Their ability to adapt.
And PDD seems to have all of that.
They're definitely a company to watch.
And we'll be here to follow their journey.
So stay tuned for more episodes of Investing Talk Podcast,
where we explore the world of finance,
analyze market trends,
and take deep dives into companies.
We really appreciate you joining us today, and we encourage you to do your own research.
Absolutely.
Talk to other investors and make informed decisions.
We're here to give you the knowledge, but ultimately the decisions are yours.
And remember, investing is a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Patience and a long-term view
are so important.
We think PDD could be a long-term winner.
But we'll have to wait and see.
We'll be here to keep you updated.
Absolutely.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Share it with your friends.
Leave a comment.
We really appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.